So tonight we are joined by 4 of the specialists in ABL. So we've got Milena, who's our psychotherapist and many years of experience. Myself, I'm a dietitian by background, so I'll be talking around food and diet behavior. We've got Rosie, who specializes in alcohol reduction, and we've got Darren, who is our physical activity lead. So we thought we'll combine all of these specialities to look at how we can change behaviors in these areas. And we'll start off with Milena tonight. The other thing I wanted to say is we will have time at the end for questions. So please, if you can have a notebook and jot some questions down as we're going through the sessions. And at the end, or type them in as you go along as well. And at the end, we'll make some turns and answer these questions for you. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you, and I'll let Milena kick off.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So very welcome to today's presentation. I will talk to you a little bit about kind of psychological perspective on behavior change. So if I could have my slide, please. Thank you. So first of all, I'd like to kind of tell you a little bit about the elements of change. So again, there's 3 very important parts to it, which is the readiness to change, barriers to change, and likelihood of relapse. So do you have the resources and knowledge to make a lasting change successfully? And is there anything preventing you from changing? And perhaps what might trigger a return to a former behavior? So starting off with the theory, can I have a next slide, please, there? So in terms of the theory, in this model, this is trans-theoretical models and stages of change. In this model, change occurs gradually, and relapses are an inevitable part of this process. So people are often unwilling or resistant to change during the early stages, but they eventually develop a proactive and committed approach to changing a behavior. And this model demonstrates that change is rarely easy. It often requires a gradual progression of small steps toward the goal. So what I will do now, I will break it down for you so you can see what each kind of part means. So let's start with pre-contemplation. The earliest stage of change is pre-contemplation. During this stage, people are not considering a change. People on this stage are often described as in denial because they claim that their behavior is not a problem. In some cases, people on this stage do not understand that their behavior is damaging, or they are underinformed about the consequences of their actions. So if you are in this stage, begin by asking yourself some questions. Have you ever tried to change this behavior in the past? How did you recognize that you have a problem? What would need to happen for you to consider your behavior a problem? How can you be kind also and compassionate with yourself around this? And next stage is contemplation. And you see the characteristics here, which is ambivalence, conflicted emotions. So during this stage, people become more and more aware of the potential benefits of making a change, but the costs tend to stand out even more. This conflict creates a strong sense of ambivalence about changing. Because of this uncertainty, the contemplation stage of change can last months or even years. Many people never make it past the contemplation phase. You might view change as a process of giving something up rather than means of gaining emotional, mental, or physical benefits. So if you're contemplating a behavior change, there are some important questions to ask yourself. Why do you want to change? Is there anything preventing you from changing? What are the things that you could help you make this change? It does not always mean you have to restrict or deny yourself things. And then moving on to preparation. So in this stage, during this preparation stage, you might begin making small changes to prepare for a larger life change. For example, if losing weight is your goal, you might need to make sure you eat regularly. If your goal is to quit smoking, you might contact smoking cessation service or smoke less each day. So strategies here perhaps might involve writing down your goals, prepare a plan of action, make a list of motivating statements, practice self-compassion. For example, in terms of learning, losing weight, learning new recipes, finding out where is there a new gym or if there is any other activities that you can do. And just allow yourself to keep recalibrating and stick to what works and leave what doesn't. This is not a competition, it's your journey. And it's very important to have a think about, all their sort of ways to support you. Who is there? Are you talking to a therapist? Can you join a health club? Can you read some self-help books? Is there something that is sustaining you there? So if you're in the preparation stage, there are some steps you can take to improve your chances of successfully making a lasting life change. So gather as much information as you can about ways to change your behavior, and definitely prepare a list of motivating statements. Definitely write down your goals. Going to the next stage, which is action. During the fourth stage of change, people begin taking direct action in order to accomplish their goals. Oftentimes, resolutions fail because the previous steps have not been given enough thought or time. So, giving an example of New Year's resolution here, for example, losing weight. Everybody immediately starts a new exercise regimen, embark on a healthier diet, or cut back on snacks. These definite steps are vital to success, but these efforts are often abandoned in a matter of weeks because the previous steps have been overlooked and you give up too many things. Take the time to periodically review your motivation, resources, and progress in order to refresh your commitment and belief in your abilities. Then let's have a look at maintenance. So if I can have a next slide. So maintaining phase of stages of change model involves successfully avoiding former behaviors and keeping up new behaviors. If you're trying to maintain a new behavior, look for ways to avoid temptation. Try replacing old habits with more positive actions. Reward yourself with self-care. Don't be too hard on yourself or give up. Instead, remind yourself that it was just a minor setback. As you will learn in the next stage, relapses are common and are part of the process of making lifelong change. During this stage, people become more assured that they will be able to continue their change. So can I have a next slide, please? The relapse. So in any behavior, can I actually go back to relapse? So this is kind of too far with the slide. Thank you. So relapse. In any behavior, relapses are a common occurrence. So when you go through a relapse, you might experience feelings of failure, disappointment, and frustration. The key to success is not to let the setbacks undermine your self-confidence. If you lapse back to an old behavior, take a compassionate look at why it happened. What triggered the relapse? What can you do to avoid these triggers in future? Which relapses, while actually relapses can be quite difficult, the best solution is to start again with the preparation, action, maintenance stages of behavior change. So remember, you can start wherever you feel it's comfortable for you. So you might want to really reassess your resources and techniques, reaffirm your motivation, plan of action, and commitment to your goals. Also make plans for how you will deal with any future temptations. Resolutions, like New Year's resolutions, fail when the proper preparation and action are not taken. So by approaching a goal with an understanding how to best prepare, act, and maintain a new behavior, you will be more likely to succeed. And it's absolutely not easy to make a major change and make it stick. But remember, it is a journey and it will have its ups and downs, but remind yourself of your resilience and let that guide you. So if I can have a next slide, I will talk a little bit about the festive time. We're approaching the festive time, and it's very important to ask ourselves this question: how to make your winter and festive period work for you? So the festive time is a time to make memories, but when you don't honor your own boundaries, they feel like a chore. Did you know that setting boundaries increases your chances of being happy? That's because very much prioritizing yourself sets the tone for everything else. When your needs are handled, you're more able to give without resenting it later. Boundaries don't depend on what others do, but on what you decide to do. So can I have a next slide, please? In terms of boundaries, we've got I decided to cover 3 types of boundaries here today. We've got physical boundaries, emotional, and time boundaries. So starting with the physical boundaries, perhaps, these type of boundaries you said regarding your body, your touch, your space, what you eat and drink, and when you're active and resting. And questions you can ask yourself to explore your physical boundaries could be, how am I comfortable being touched by others? Hugs, handshakes, high fives, or maybe not at all. In the times of COVID, it's really important also to ask yourself, is it okay for me to hug everybody? Because it's definitely okay to say no, not at all, to protect yourself. Am I comfortable with people coming into my space, or is that just space for me? Can I put a boundary there? Is there a belief around food I have that is restrictive and comes from diet mentality? Especially with festive foods, we go on to the all or nothing mentality, which then harms us because we do not have to eat it all, but we can eat. Do not deprive yourself because diet is not starting from Monday, I hope, or from January. Give yourself unconditional permission to have food, but take responsibility for your well-being. Your body does not need 50 mince pies. It needs enough to feel fulfilled. Are there foods or drinks I won't have, perhaps? Ask yourself this. Definitely, Rosie's going to cover a little bit about alcohol beverages, but have a think about that. Can I become aware of the boundary of my fullness and not eat past this? Can I be mindful of my body while eating and drinking? Is this nurturing me or harming me? Or am I okay with giving myself permission to have food? I deserve to eat. Remember this, you deserve to eat. How will I prioritize the time I need to rest? Or can I keep a balance that nurtures my body and my mind? And can I make sure I move enough? Because our bodies have been designed to move, and we need this to honor this need. And can I get next slide? So next slide, emotional boundaries. Are the types of boundaries you said regarding what you're comfortable sharing emotionally with others, but also acknowledging for yourself? Questions to help you explore your emotional boundaries could be around, who will I turn to when I need to discuss something personal? How will I make space to process my own emotions so that I don't ignore myself? How do I release my emotions? What self-care strategies do I have? Can I give myself a permission to avoid people who drain my energy? And what types of things am I not comfortable sharing with friends or family, etc.? And then lastly, what are the time boundaries? So time boundaries are the boundaries you set for yourself regarding how much spend your time, how you spend your time, how you prioritize your time, what your time is worth. And questions here, how much time will I like to reserve just for myself? What takes priority when I'm dividing up my free time? My time is precious, and I have a right to use it to my own advantage. Others do not control my time. So boundaries do not only protect our time, energy, our body, but they also protect our relationships. They make us examine our own limits and challenge us to communicate more directly, which helps us to prevent miscommunications, misunderstanding, and build up resentment. So mind yourself. And thank you. I will hand it over to Twane.
Thank you, Milena. So that was very insightful about sort of the way that we start to make a change. So I'll be looking at behavioral change when it comes to healthy eating. And I thought I'd just start with talking about habits. So the most common approach to changing a habit is to launch ourselves with great enthusiasm into a world of restriction, committing ourselves to quitting snacks, alcohol, and chips forevermore. This might work for the first week or so, but and then we give into temptation and resort back to old habits. However, there are more successful ways to approach changing habits and creating a healthier you. The route is successfully changing our eating or other behaviors is to focus on forming new habits which will last a lifetime. So a habit, these habits, that's automatic. So a habit sometimes just happens. Habits are simply something that we do without thought as part of our normal routine. Habits are easy. We just do them day in and day out without making choices or thinking about what we are doing. Behavior, on the other hand, is more a deliberate, chosen way of action. To change behavior, we have to make a choice. Whether choosing a new recipe or taking a daily walk, we have to choose to do this new behavior. This can be hard work and it takes lots of willpower and self-control and energy, which is all well and good when we have an when we feel upbeat and energized, isn't it? But when we fade and become tired, stressed, hungry, or bored, temptation kicks in and willpower rapidly fades away. Suddenly, we're on a guilt trip of failing again without without even realizing that it's happened. Does this sound familiar? Because I think it sounds very familiar to me. Habits are usually triggered by the time of day, a place, or a feeling. The alarm goes off and you make a cup of tea or coffee. It's 1 o'clock, so you eat lunch. After a long day of work, you might come home and have a cup of tea and a few biscuits while you're making the dinner. You don't even think about it. It's just make a cup of tea and eat the biscuits automatically. Habits are a response to a cue, and the reason we do them is to get a reward. In this case, the cue is feeling tired, and the reward is a sweet taste of the biscuits with your cup of tea. And you might associate that with comfort or your childhood. A starting point is to identify the habit to change. So, what do we want to change? For instance, I want to stop snacking in front of the TV, or the new habit I want to create. So, for instance, I want to start moving my body more, so I want to go for a daily walk. If it's a current habit, what reward does that habit give you? Does it comfort you or an emotional, or give you an emotional boost? Understanding the reward from a habit makes it much easier to change that into a healthier habit. To change a habit, a new routine is needed to give the same feeling or reward. In the case of feeling comfort from a cup of tea and biscuits at the end of the day, you might be able to create the same "oh, I'm home at last" feeling by changing your clothes and going outside for a 10-minute walk to de-stress. So you swap the one behavior to another one, but that will take time, and giving yourself that time and space to do that and to practice that new behavior is really important. Work out what to change and how to do that change. Make it something really specific. Don't just be general saying, I'm going to eat more vegetables. Make it very specific by saying, I will add a bowl of salad to my lunch every day. Ensure you can measure that you actually did that or that you achieved that. So you can say, I will add a bowl of salad to my lunch every day for the next 2 weeks, and then I will evaluate to see how many days did I actually achieve that goal. Make it challenging, but something you have to achieve. So make it achievable. Make it very realistic for yourself. So don't aim to have a bowl of salad with your lunch if you absolutely hate salad, because it's not going to happen. Take the time to check in how you are doing. Every 2 or 3 weeks is really ideal. So if you set yourself a goal to change a habit, check in to see, am I doing that? How am I doing? Have you managed to stick to your new behavior? If yes, that's great. It's time to build on this and add something new, maybe. If no, then ask yourself, well, why? What stopped you? Could you do it differently, or was it just the wrong time for you, or even maybe the wrong goal? Work out how to build on this every time so you get better at building healthier habits. In summary, the cue triggers a craving, which motivates a response, which provides a reward, which satisfies the craving and ultimately becomes associated with the cue. So that's the cycle of forming a habit. So if we know how a habit is formed, we can know how to change a habit as well. So together, these 4 steps form a neurological feedback loop. Cue, craving, response, reward. Cue, craving, response, reward, etc., etc. And ultimately, this allows you to create an automatic habit. We can split these 4 steps into 2 phases. The problem phase is a cue and a craving. And then the solution phase is the response and the reward. And it is what you take action, and it is when you take action and achieve your desired change that the solution phase really works for you. All behavior is driven by the desire to solve a problem. Sometimes the problem is that you notice something good and you want to obtain it. But sometimes the problem is that you're experiencing pain or uncomfortableness and you want to relieve that. Either way, the purpose of every habit is to solve the problems you face. Let's look at a practical example. So, you smell a donut shop as you walk down the street near your office. So that's the cue. The craving, you begin to crave a donut. The response, you go in and you buy a donut and you eat it. The reward, you satisfy your craving by eating the donut. Buying a donut can become associated with walking down the street near your office. And this is likely to become a new habit. So every time you go to work, you buy a donut because that's just what you do. We can transform these 4 steps into a practical framework that we can use to design good habits and eliminate bad ones. Whenever you want to change your behavior, you can ultimately just ask yourself, how can I make it more obvious? So what is that cue? Or how can I make that cue invisible? So if I go back to my donut scenario, can I walk a different route to work? Or can I just leave my purse in the car and not have any money with me? How can I make it unattractive? Or how can I make it more attractive if you want to make a better goal? How can I make it really easy for me to avoid that cue? And how can I make it more difficult to do the thing that I don't want to do? So how can I stop myself from going into that donut shop? How can I make it satisfying, so feeling rewarding? Or how can I make it unsatisfying? So if I buy the donut, that I feel like the stickiness in my mouth, or I know my weight isn't going down, so the reward isn't there. Moving on, I thought I'll just kind of talk a little bit about mindful eating. Become more aware of your eating and drinking. That's really what the essence of mindful eating is. In our fast-paced society, eating and drinking have become something that is rushed or done at the same time as something else. So eating and watching TV, or eating and working. All too often we watch TV over breakfast or dinner, eating at our desk, or while checking our social media post. How often do you stop and eat a meal on your own, or as a family with no distractions? Sadly, this is becoming increasingly rare. For too many people, eating has become a mindless act, often done too quickly. Something as simple as the speed at which you eat can increase the risk of gaining weight. Becoming overweight or obese and having raised levels of blood fats, such as cholesterol and triglycerides, is associated with eating too fast. All of these increase the risk of developing heart disease as well. The brain can take up to 20 minutes to realize that you're full. And so if you eat quickly, The fullness signals to stop eating may not arrive until you have already eaten too much. The idea that eating slowly might increase fullness and reduce energy intake at meal times seems very likely. My mom told us to chew our food 20 times before swallowing, and I guess she was right. Chewing each mouthful 35 times compared to 10 times has been shown to reduce energy intake by up to 12%, so eating 12% less food. Enough to stop unwanted weight gain and maybe even sufficient to help you to lose weight. Be more mindful of what you eat and drink. Start by consciously slowing down and taking time to taste and chew every mouthful thoroughly. Doing this will consistently help to rewire your brain and make enjoyment of food your new normal. Plan when and what you are going to eat rather than grabbing food on the impulse. Sit down at a table, serve food on a plate or in a bowl, or use a knife and fork or a spoon or cut to eat. Eat with others. Get chatting while you're eating. Get socially connected. Slow down, enjoy the food, and enjoy the conversation. Mindful eating helps us to distinguish between emotional eating, and physical hunger. It can help increase our recognition of food-related triggers and give us the freedom to choose our reactions to them. Mindfulness about how much activity we do and what and when and how often we eat and drink isn't as time consuming as you might think. By paying a bit more attention to what healthier behaviors you can embrace can be a positive way to help you to emerge into a new normal and a stronger and fitter than ever before. Simply give thought to your actions and you will emerge into a whole new positive world. You will have nothing to lose but to improve your own physical and mental well-being. So why not give it a go? I have made some resources for you. And some of these resources might come handy in this sort of festive period that we're entering or celebratory period. So it's kind of how to say no politely. And it's called Food, Fables and Friends. Food, Family and Friends, the fables. So how to kind of dodge that difficult conversation sometimes. So please, if you want this, if you can go on to the chat function, send me your email and I will send you these resources out. Thank you. And we'll move on to Rosie with those slides.
Hi. So just a brief little bit about behaviour change around alcohol intake. Can I have the first slide, please? Okay, so I'm going to talk about the importance of attending alcohol sessions. We do a variety of sessions in our service. So we do some face-to-face some one-to-one sessions, but we do a very big focus on group sessions. So in terms of determination, when people attend the sessions, they demonstrate that they're determined to bring about changes in the goals that they've set themselves. Commitment, again, putting that time aside to show yourself some self-love by working towards a goal you've set yourself, shows both to yourself and those around you that you're committed to achieving it and teaches us how to adopt healthy habits. Then moving on to accountability. When attending both groups and one-to-ones, you become accountable both to your worker and more importantly towards your peer group. We find in the alcohol group that there's a culture of holding each other accountable, and it works really positively because it's coming from like-minded people who are on a similar and difficult path. Support, again, talking about our groups. In our groups, the support that people give each other is immense. Their main goal is around their alcohol reduction and abstinence. However, within the groups, we have experienced deaths of partners, stage 4 cancer diagnosis, divorce, and the death of a member of the group. And the support that was shared between the members can't be replicated anywhere else. Sharing ideas. So peer support is the best way of sharing ideas. You're more likely to accept and implement that advice and support from someone who's going through the same emotions and struggles as you than you are from a professional. And motivation. Motivation builds momentum when you're doing the next right thing. And the more we surround ourselves with others who are on the same path as us, the more that motivation builds within us. And then growth. The more attention we give to a plant, the stronger it grows and flourishes. We're sentient beings, and if we pay greater attention to our physical and emotional well-being, we'll grow stronger and flourish. And celebration. So in the groups, the celebrations of people's clean times, of life changes they've made, the little wins, and the ability of dealing with life on life's terms, a beautiful thing to be part of. When we try and achieve a life goal independently, we miss out on that and the joy and pride that it can give us. Can I have the next slide, please? So behaviour change, goal setting. So that gives us ownership of the goals that we've set ourselves. Support networks. So, you know, gives us the opportunity, or what we need to be doing is spending time with like-minded people working towards a similar goal. Accountability. So, you know, preventing ourselves from giving ourselves permissions to do things. Consequences. So be really honest and brutal about what these are. Personal development. It's not for broken people, it's for people who want a better life. Self-worth. As we know, self-confidence is a superpower. Once you start believing in yourself, that's when the magic starts to happen. An additional support. We always advise our clients, grab everything that's on offer to you. Change doesn't happen to you. You have to make steps to make it happen for you. Setting smart goals. So make sure all the goals that you set yourself are, you know, are smart. Spend some time working on this. Don't make them ambiguous. And self-efficacy. So don't view bumps in the road as a mistake. View them as an opportunity to learn what not to do next time. Can I have the next slide, please? So sober shaming is a big issue at the moment. Lots of clients have been talking about this. So at this time of year, alcohol is everywhere and it's unavoidable. You know, if people are trying to maintain abstinence or reducing their alcohol use, you can, between January and November, you can avoid the alcohol aisles in the supermarket. But this time of year, it's at the end of every aisle. It's on most of the ad breaks on TV. We get offered a drink whenever we go and visit friends and family, and it is hidden in so much Christmas food. Expectations. So we have a culture in this country that when we go out to socialise with friends and family, alcohol is always involved. It can become about the drinking as opposed to socialising and getting together, and perceptions are changing around this, but they're changing very slowly, and more emphasis needs to be placed on the getting together element rather than the drinking. When you go out, have a plan A. So offer to be the designated driver, have a reason or excuse. Be firm, be aware that people will push you because people feel that you can't possibly have a good time without a drink. But then also have a plan B. So time limit how long you're going to be out for. Take cash with you, not your bank card. Make yourself accountable and plan something really nice and early on the next day so that you don't give yourself those permissions. And I think we all need to ask ourselves whether we've been guilty of sober shaming people. So if you think back really carefully and honestly about your own behaviours, have you done it yourself? And then bringing about a change in perception. So we alienate people when they become dependent drinkers or when their alcohol use causes harm to themselves or others, but we also alienate people when they're working hard not to drink, and it needs to stop. Can I have the next slide, please? So saying no politely. So like I said, offer to be the designated driver. People never pressure you to drink if they want you to take them home. Have excuses in the bank. There's loads that you can use. So you've got work tomorrow, you've not got much money because it's Christmas, you're nursing a hangover from the night before. Alcohol-free alternatives. All pubs, clubs and restaurants stock a wide range of them. Be honest with people because they value that. And most importantly, accept that the word no is a full sentence. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So alcohol in Christmas food. So mince pies. A dozen shop-bought mince pies can push your alcohol levels over the drink drive limit. Although I do think that even I would struggle to eat a dozen. Gravies in restaurants. We've got our work Christmas do next weekend. There's only one thing on the menu that I can have, which is a vegetarian risotto, which doesn't fill me with much excitement because everyone else on there has alcohol in the sauce or the gravy. Christmas cakes, they're fed with alcohol for weeks in the build up to Christmas. Trifle, I absolutely love trifle. And it's one of the few things that my mum can make well because she can't cook too great. Every Christmas she gives me a trifle and it's got sherry in it. And every Christmas that she forgets that I can't have it. So every Christmas I have to give it back. I think she does it on purpose. Christmas pudding, it's traditionally soaked in ethanol for flavour maturation and to slow down the rate of spoilage. Despite research in this field, it's a common misconception that all the alcohol evaporates during the cooking process. Gatos, I've got a friend who is the manager at one of our rehabs. About 5 years ago, he was doing the Christmas Day shift and he treated all the residents to loads of different gatos. And in rehabs, you get breath tested every night. And every one of the residents was over the limit because he'd relapsed them all on the gatos by not reading what was in them. Hot chocolates and coffees. So at Christmas markets, they've normally got Baileys in them, so just be aware. And mulled wine. I booked tickets with a friend of mine to go to a carol service in a couple of weeks. Really excited about it. Got my tickets. On the menu, there's mince pies, which I can't have because I don't know how much alcohol's in them. And mulled wine. No options of tea or coffee or anything like that. Can I have the next slide, please? So New Year's resolutions. So reduce just a little bit. Rome wasn't built in a day. Just by reducing one drink or one can a week, you can see a difference very, very quickly. I would advocate, though, that if you are a daily drinker, do not reduce your alcohol use without seeking medical guidance. Dry January. So it's a little app with a big mission, can make a huge difference. Sign up to it, get in a competition with your friends and family. Keep a diary, so keep a drink diary for 2 weeks, record your mood in it as well. You might see some patterns begin to emerge. Alternatives, so there's loads of substitutes for alcoholic drinks. Personally, I don't find the no-lows very nice, but there's mocktails, and I do love a drink of dandelion and burdock, brings back a bit of nostalgia. Write a plan and keep to it. So write a plan for a month, stick to it, see if it works and see how you feel after a month. Can I have the next slide, please? So the importance of well-being. So look after your mental health. Often we use alcohol or other substances to escape our busy, noisy heads. When we remove the alcohol, our head's still busy with the same chatter. So get some talking therapies. Explore perfectionism as well. In AA, so Alcoholics Anonymous big book, sorry, that's just my timer to say my 10 minutes are up, I'll talk really quick. It says that people in recovery often adopt a perfectionist mindset that creates a harmful cycle. So people set unrealistic goals, fall short and are self-critical. Remember that it's a small snapshot of time. So aim for a week of reduction, then 2 weeks, then a month. When we look at forever, it can seem impossible. Self-care, look after yourself, sleep when you need to sleep, put good things in your body. Eat well, so good healthy food prepared by yourself, that distraction in an evening when you'd normally be drinking, of cooking instead, can be, can really help you through those first few weeks. Don't berate yourself. If you mess up and have a drink, accept it for what it is, refocus, start again. Remind yourself that you're human and we're all flawed. Get outside, even if it's just for 5 minutes with a cup of tea in the garden, get some fresh air. And don't overspend, because we often overspend too much at this time of year. So next slide, please. Healthy lifestyle. So get exercising, eat healthy, self-care. Bit of meditation. I can't advocate for meditation enough. Just 5 to 10 minutes a day can make all the difference. Mindfulness, that I know has already been spoken about in the other slides. Have a good work-life balance. Sometimes when we remove something from our life, we put something else in. So we spend too much time at work, but have a good balance with that. Connect with others as well. I think it's the biggest thing, I mentioned about the peer support in the groups, and get outside in nature. So just the last slide, please, if that's okay. So maintaining a behaviour change, the key things for me in terms of alcohol reduction are having a support network. So attending groups for the first time is really intimidating, but the rewards are widespread. Make yourself accountable, and not just accountable to yourself, but your friends, your family, your colleagues, and the wider community. Use everything that is offered to you when you're reducing your drinking. So whatever groups or whatever support is offered to you, make sure you use it. Self-efficacy. So when you have self-belief that you can achieve the goals you've set, when you make a mistake, it's just a bump in the road. Explore your reservations. So your reservations are the things that would hold you, that would cause you to relapse. Explore what they are. Have a plan of what you're going to do and how long you're going to do it for, and reward yourself. There is many rewards that we can give ourselves that are free, that don't involve money or alcohol or food, and Google can give you loads. For me, my personal favourite is that my grandchildren have never experienced me in addiction, and to them, I'm just their nan. That's it from me. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So my name's Darren, and we're going to just talk about moving forward in winter time. So physical activity, you'll be pleased to know I'm not going to get you jumping around on this call, but you never know, in the future we might do. So if you don't mind moving on to the next slide for me, please. So on the screen, you'll see the benefits of exercise and physical activity. So two different things, actually. So exercise is where we actually set out and purposely aim to do some sort of moving. So going for a run, going to the gym, going to play sport. Where physical activity is anything we do on a day-to-day life. So walking the dog, cleaning the house, doing the washing. All of them add up to great benefits, which link in with this. With anything to do with the heart, a lot of the training needs to come around what we call cardiovascular, or what people will be told CV. So this is where we actually elevate the heart rate, increases that blood flow, oxygen through the muscles and into the lungs. So this can help prevent things like strokes and reduce things like heart attacks by up to 30%. For people who suffer things like osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and musculoskeletal, we do recommend people doing resistance training. And some people have that fear with resistance training, that they need to be in the gym lifting heavy weights. And that's not the case. This can be done by body weight. This can be done at home using things like resistance bands. It can be even using tins out of your cupboards. Anything resistance is going to help increase that bone density and help aches and pains with the skeletal system. We also have an element of flexibility, so stretching. And some people, that's the element they miss off at the end of their training sessions. However, for people with fibromyalgia and musculoskeletal, it's very important to ingrain that in to help actually lengthen those muscles. It might be a little bit painful at the start. However, implementing that routine, you will see the great benefits, and it'll actually set you up for the rest of your day. We're now going to move on to the benefits of exercise during winter, because this is where it links into where we hit that time of the year. It starts getting dark. As I look out my window, it's pitch black, and we think, do you know what? We'll start in January. Well, no, we start today. If you're feeling motivated, you take action. So the benefits of exercise in winter is actually, it keeps you warm. So when you actually warm up and start moving around, your body actually generates a lot of heat. And that's when you see people, when they stop, steam coming off them. Yeah. Your body actually holds that temperature for around about 20 minutes after exercising. So if you've actually gone for a 5K power walk or a run and you can come in, you're actually going to save yourself a bit of money because your heating doesn't have to go on for an extra 5 minutes or so. Also, if you're a bit like me and you sweat quite a lot and you're thinking, oh gosh, I don't want people seeing me. In winter, because of the cooler weather, that's not as common. Also, it means you can have less clothing on. If you are someone who does get really hot, I always go with the statement, be bold and start cold, because your body will warm up. Any movement of the skeletal system, we generate heat, and we generate something called a synovial fluid, which we'll discuss later on. When you're cold, you actually burn more calories. That doesn't mean you just stand out as shaking for my team. That is not what we're looking for. But because your body's trying to create heat, the body starts to shiver, yeah? So we do burn additional calories. However, we do want to make sure we're nice and warm and not getting hypothermia. And most importantly, and where we come to, it improves your mood. So it reduces people who are affected by SAD, which is actually a seasonal affective disorder. So with physical activity, we release things called endorphins, a feel-good factor. So after the exercise, you feel really pumped and you go, do you know what? That wasn't that bad. Darren wasn't a bad bloke. He had bad jokes, but it was good fun. It's more important in winter times because we have a lack of sunlight. So we actually have, we create in our body a little bit more melatonin, which is a bit like more of a sleepy hormone. And that's when we become a little bit more sluggish and down. So again, trying to move more is going to have great psychological benefits. As we move on to the next slide, I just want you to think, how long should we be spending on exercise or physical activity a day? And then also thinking about what we should do a week. Also, just think, how much am I doing? How much are you actually putting in your routine currently before what I'm hoping going to shock you? Or on the other hand, you might be thinking, oh, I do way too much. So we're going to move on to the next slide. So how much? 150 minutes of moderate intensity is the government guidelines minimum requirement. So they normally split this over 30 minutes, 5 days a week. Yeah. Best thing I can say is 30 minutes every single day. Saturday, Sunday isn't a day off, unfortunately. The key word to this team is that moderate intensity. If you are walking your dog casually and you come home and your heart rate hasn't increased, you're not sweaty, you haven't gone a pinky red, we actually wouldn't count this as moderate intensity, which means you wouldn't count that as 30 minutes of the government guidelines. However, you have reduced sedentary behavior and you're moving more, so you're still going to get a lot more of the psychological benefits. So doing something is better than nothing. Vigorous intensity. This is my guy Joe Wicks bouncing around like a kangaroo. That is pretty much high plyometric training, lots of bounding. Not really good if you have actually quite a lot of health conditions, especially around the joints. You are going to be gasping for air. 70% of us do not like to be there. I always say you live for tomorrow. So if that puts you off and it's going to put you into relapse, stick to moderate intensity. If you can cope with that, you're going to ingrain it into your routine a lot better. So when we say 30 minutes, people go, I haven't got the time. This can be broken up into 3 10-minute segments throughout the day. Or 2 15 minutes, or a 20 and a 10. We don't recommend you to go any lower than that. The reason being, we do need to make sure that body is warm to prevent any risk of injury. So in that 10 minutes, you are looking at getting a little bit of a pulse raiser and then aiming to sort of have a good 5 to sort of 8 minutes in that moderate intensity zone. Yeah, we're going to move on because here are some signs and symptoms now of moderate intensity. So moderate intensity, breathing starts to quicken, slightly sweating, bit of perspiration, able to hold a conversation with someone. So if anyone's ever been to my groups, you know I love to talk, and that is just to make sure I can read you. We always say you should be able to talk, but not sing. Unfortunately, if you've just got a bad voice, singing voice, that doesn't count. If anyone is fancy and wears these gadgets to track your heart rate, we always do work between 50 and 70% of your maximum heart rate. For anyone who is interested in that, we normally just do an easy breakdown of 220 minus your age. That would give roughly your maximum heart rate, and you work out your percentages from there. Your high intensity, as you can see, breathing becomes a lot more of a struggle. Sweating will increase. You probably can't speak and you'll be flat out, legs up at the end. For fitness instructors, they might talk to you about the bulk scale, whether this is in a group environment or in the gym. And that is just a rate of perceived exertion, and it's just easier to gauge. So we normally say scale of 0 to 10, we want to be between 3 and 6 for that moderate intensity zone. Some people might show a chart. If they go 4, that is the time for you or the instructor to try and adapt that exercise to either increase it or decrease it, depending on how you feel on the day. We're now going to move on to my favorite slide of overcoming barriers. I am a gentleman who has come up with plenty of excuses in the past, and I'm sure some of you can think of your own. So if you just want to have a little look down the list and just have a little smile to yourself if any of them relates to you. But how can we overcome some of these? So medical conditions, especially during winter, aches and pains are going to kick in. Unfortunately, anyone who has arthritis, you know, as soon as that temperature drops, everything hurts. Well, actually, in your local area, there should be signposting to specific groups. So there's cardiac rehab, there's chair-based, there's fall prevention, there's weight management groups. Those instructors there should have specialized qualifications who can adapt exercises to meet your needs. In winter, it is important to have a warm-up. So like I mentioned at the start, synovial fluid. If we all just do a few shoulder rolls up and back for me, any movement of the 3 joints would create this synovial fluid, which is just a liquid membrane which goes around the joint. This actually helps prevent bone rubbing on bone, so it makes a smoother transition. That is why warm-ups are very important, because people who have got bone rubbing on bone, like arthritis, etc., it helps ease the pain, meaning they can do a main workout. Unfortunately, you can never get rid of it, but that's why it's very important, especially in winter times. I don't have time. Everyone uses this. How could we overcome this? Write down your weekly routine on a piece of paper. Try and plot your 30 minutes minimum in. Can it be 10 minutes here and there? If you have an hour's lunch break, do you need it to be sat there at a table eating a jam sandwich or whatever you've got? Could you actually go out for a 10-minute brisk walk? Could it be 15 minutes? Could it be 10 before taking children to school, etc.? Do make sure it is relevant and achievable though. So this is where we go back to something called SMART goals, which we'll discuss in a second. But plan your day. If you don't plan, you plan to fail, yeah? I'm too tired, always a common one, but sometimes this is a mental block. And going back again, when we release endorphins as we're exercising, at the end of it, you will feel better for it. And once you've witnessed that a couple of times, it does make it easier to go in and exercise. Willpower, especially when it's dark nights, we get this quite a bit. However, how can we make a commitment? If it's a gym membership, could we make a commitment with a fitness instructor and organize a meetup so they're holding you accountable? Same as fitness classes. Are you someone, if you book onto a class, you're going to turn up because you feel guilty? Could we find a fitness buddy who's willing to go with you? Anything like that will hopefully increase willpower. But deep down, you've took action to maybe look at this. Why? Why are you there? What's your reasonings? Is it family? You want to be better and healthy for your family long term? Is it your weight management journey? Is it that beach holiday you've been on for the last 2 years? Put little cues, photos up around the house to just increase that willpower. I don't like exercise. Well, exercise, unfortunately, doesn't have to be sad. Just do anything you like. We discussed physical activity. If it's gardening, if it's dancing, yeah, anything what is moving is going to be better than anything. However, you're not going to stick to anything unless you enjoy it. Again, out in the local community, there's plenty of different groups what are made available, and a lot of them will always do a free taster session. So again, use it. Find people. Use our service if you need to help with signposting. It's hard work. Again, going back to that moderate intensity and vigorous intensity. An instructor's always there to motivate you and push you. You will know your bodies better than we always will ever will. And that's what it comes down to. Do not jump in 2 feet first. And I don't mean playing football with a slide tackle. Yeah, we gradually build it up. Just like anything, we have to build the foundations to then build a house. So it takes time. And if you do have any sort of comorbidities, it may take a little bit longer. But I promise you, after a bit of commitment, sort of 6 to 8 weeks, you will reap even some small benefits, which will inspire you and give you that willpower to carry on. The weather's bad. Use this all the time. Exercise doesn't have to be done outdoors. Exercise doesn't have to be in the gym if we're even talking about cost. There's lots of stuff now on YouTube, and there's lots of apps out there what are free of charge. Again, though, that comes down to willpower, because are we just making up the excuse? If it was sunny, would you go for the run? Probably not, because again, we're thinking it's too hot, too cold. Yeah. But exercises can be done anywhere. And remember, equipment, you don't need any. And the last one, I've fallen off the wagon. I'll start again Monday, or I'll start again in the new year. Try and start immediately. If you've fallen off, reflect. Why have you fallen off? Write it down. Could you put a buddy in place? Could you revisit your plan and change your plan? If it's to do with family and that's why it's changed, could we get family involved? Is it coming away maybe from the gym and doing more with your children, for instance? Yeah, it always comes back to that planning. Next slide, please. So how to implement exercise? Well, I think we've just pretty much talked about that. So there's just a few little notes on there. So the one I use mainly because of the dark nights now is if you normally go to the gym or exercise class and you go home first, is avoid that, especially at this time of year, because when you get home and you get cozy, you don't want to come out. So take your gym clothes with you. But most importantly there is make sure that routine is smart. So specific to you. Is it measurable? So how are you looking at it? Is it weight loss for scales? If it's resistance, are you doing any sort of testing beforehand? Is it achievable? Is it realistic? And is it time effective? So you always want to break that into your routines. Moving on, and how to get started safely. So health issues, we normally say get medical clearance first. And this is, if I'm going to be honest, anyone who maybe had a stroke or you've had a heart attack. It might be the case you're linking up with a social prescriber or linking in with a service like us and having that conversation. Because a lot of the time, actually, you normally are fine. You might just have a few risks, but again, with the right instructor, they will go through all that with you. But again, for reassurance, if you did want to go to your GP, you're more than welcome to. Do your warm-ups, like I said, about that synovial fluid, increasing the blood flow, increasing heat. And this just helps prevent any injuries team during the exercise. Your cool down, like I said, about stretching, improving flexibility, actually helps aid recovery and again, prevention of injuries. So a lot of people, when they do exercise first couple of times, the next 2 days, they can't sit down or they go on the toilet and start cursing the instructor. We call this DOMS, and that's delayed onset muscular soreness. And sometimes that's because the muscles haven't been flushed through at the end, haven't been stretched. If you're completely new, you're still going to get a little bit because your muscles haven't done that for a while and they're still developing, but that does go. Drink plenty of water. Even if you don't think you're dehydrated, you would have lost fluid, whether this has come through heat or through sweat. So always taking on water. And the last one is always listen to your body. Like I said, you will know it better than us. If something is discomfort, stop. Yeah. Do not listen to the whole thing, the pain and gain. It's false. So what's in your local area? Well, there's park runs up and around team. So there's Saturday mornings, free of charge. Lots of people do it, walks as well, walking groups around there. So that's fantastic. You have your local gyms, your GP, your social prescribers can actually get people gym discounts depending on comorbidities and if they're deemed as inactive. Again, we're all together. They're also linked in with the GP referral schemes. There's lots of health walks set up, especially around Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, but I'm sure they're all over the place as well. As a part of our service, we have the Your Health, Your Way groups and ABL Health groups around weight management and physical activity only, which gives you an overview of all different types of exercise. There's social media groups. So again, we do some on Facebook, we do Zoom, and we have our YouTube channel. So like I said, you can do exercise at home. And if you join that, you'll probably see a lot of me. Local area as well in winter. Oh, sorry, I've skipped one. So family days out in winter, that's my fault. I've put that in the wrong slide there. Winter wonderlands are in Nottingham. So there's lots of things. So you've got your ice skating. There's lots of your winter walks where you can walk around the lights. Like I said, family days out, these do come as a cost. But again, it's physical activity and including the family. So if we can go back a slide, because I put that in wrong. And there are a lot of useful free links as well, which we can put in the chat. So you've got your YouTube for us. You've got NHS workouts, short 10 minutes. Again, it can be done at work or at home. A couch to 5K to get you from walking to running if you wish. There's your park runs, and there's a couple with Fitness Blender and Les Mills. They are big providers of the fitness, and there's some free sort of 30-day trials to witness their classes. I do want to end on just this team, just a bit of a reflection, especially around time from my side of things. So a week has 168 hours. We'll take into account everyone has 8 hours sleep. So we have 56 hours to sleep, 40 hours work, 10 hours to eat, 8 hours to do sort of our chores around the house, 8 hours to take bathroom breaks in showers, and roughly 6 hours to commute to and fro work. That still leaves us with another 40-hour week. What choices are you going to do and make in that 40 hours? Think and make changes. Thank you very much.